Good morning and welcome to One Lonely Farmer. So I think what we're going to do is just talk about the metric system a little bit and explain the tractor that's on its side in the thumbnail. I got another picture I'll put up in the front of this video as well. Okay, so that tractor does not belong to me. It belongs to somebody else. Christ, his name is slipping my head here. I will state the name. I probably shouldn't even use. I'm not going to use his name. Anyway, he had an issue. If you know anything about moldboard plows, that is a semi-mounted plow. I do believe that he's got on the back of that thing. I do not plow anymore. I have two plows. If somebody wants to buy one, I'd be more than willing to sell it to them reasonably priced because I just don't feel I have a need for a plow anymore. But anyway, he had a low tire and he was on a hill, and when he swung around to go back down the furrow, I imagine the centrifugal force, the combination of the centrifugal force of that plow swinging around and the low tire, a hole on a hill, actually sent him over on his side. He is okay. He didn't die, but he's pretty beat up. I mean, he didn't have a seatbelt on. I have grown accustomed to putting seatbelts on in tractors and mowers and even the combine because you just don't know what's going to happen. And it's better to be safe than sorry. There's another YouTuber, Griggs Farm, Griggs, Griggs Farm. He went through the window of a case combine. Yeah, boom, the header popped off the combine and he flipped out through the glass and onto the roadway. Survived it, but still, seatbelt would have saved him. And I've always got that crap in mind, like, holy shit, you're you're going down a road with a header on. If you don't have it fastened correctly, and a lot of us will do that, we don't put the lower bolts on, fasteners on at times, or you just, something happens and that's what happens. But anyways, with the metric system, people, they're like, oh, you don't understand the metric system. I understand the metric system just fine. It's millimeters, centimeters, meters, kilometers, and so on and so forth. And they're supposed to be in increments of ones and tens. But that's not entirely true. I had a pickup truck one time that had a stator issue on the distributor cap. This is in 1986. I still have the tool because I had to special order the damn thing to do this. The stator on the distributor cap went bad. On the distributor went bad, and I took a 2.5 millimeter. Now, for those of you that say that, oh, you should use metric because that fractional system is old, outdated, and sucks. Well, what's 2.5? That's a fraction, isn't it? It's half of a millimeter, isn't it? Right? It's half of a millimeter. That's a fraction, or the hardness on an 8.8 or a 10.9 bolt. Well, the hardness is in fractions. So don't be all self-righteous and telling me that there's no half sizes or quarter sizes or hardnesses are measured in increments of 10. Yes, 10.10, right? So it would come in 10, but it's still a fraction, so it's a hardness of 10.9. It's not quite an 11 on the grade scale, so that's a fraction of 1. And it's just whatever. If you can't figure out fractions, then who's the dummy? Whatever. It doesn't even matter. I could go on and on about these pitches and bolt sizes with head sizes or the tool size that you need to remove. It's John Deere's fault, but it's not, because these bolts, John Deere doesn't build its own bolts. They purchase bolts. Did John Deere contract somebody to make those bolts? And no, I've never encountered Whitworth. Heard of it, or British Standard, but Whitworth I've never heard of. But yes, there are so many different combinations, and that header or that machine does use different head sizes, and it's just annoying. It's just annoying to me. Now, somebody had said in the case windrower or the New Holland windrower that everything up there up front is 3/4 except for the shock hub bolt, which is a 5/8 12 point. Well, that's exactly true. And he's happy with the way it works. And then he goes on to say that he snapped the shaft. That's my problem with New Holland. Those top caps, the bearings in the top caps are a constant issue. Never had one go out in a deer. Never. In that deer, in 9 years of use of that thing, I've never had a top cap go bad. Shock hubs, yeah, maybe a half a dozen of them in my 9 years with that thing. And that's why they have that notch in that friction disc. That's so you can see if the hub is actually, if you know what you're looking for. And because they don't break very often, you don't really look. So it is what it is. But the video you're about to see is, excuse me, it's kind of early. Actually, I've been up since 4:30. But the video you're about to see is just me talking about the pricing and stuff like that, and what's going on, and why the farm economy is tanking, and farmers are scraping for money. I was out at Zimmerman's yesterday. The only thing in my life farming this year that has gone down in price is baling twine, believe it or not. And that's an indication that people are not baling up what they were baling up before, because there's an awful lot of baling twine on the market. Normally this time of year there's nothing left, and there's quite a bit in there. I have quite a bit, and he reduced the number of pallets of twine that he bought this year, because he said people just sold their balers, getting rid of their balers. I was like, well, if they sold them, somebody else is using them, right? And he says, yeah, but they're not using them like the guys that sold them. So they were able to get a big square baler to do 150 or 200 acres of alfalfa, whereas they were, contracting it out before. And they got a baler for a reasonable amount of price, because the balers there were so many of them on that lot out there. There must have been 10 of them on the lot. So instead of a guy doing 10,000 acres in a year with these balers, multiple balers, there's one guy that's going to do a couple 300 acres, thus reducing the amount of baling twine that they're going to be using. So anyways, with that, I yield on the metric system. To me, it's not complicated. It's just frustrating, because there's 3 different tool sizes you need to remove it. Now I'm finding out there's 5 different thread sizes. Here in the US, we'll have three different thread sizes, and for the metric bolts, not the standard, coarse and fine thread in the standard US standard bolts, the fractional size, if you want to talk about that. Would I be upset if we went to metric, all metric here in the US? I absolutely would. And here's a couple of reasons. I have had so many problems with metric bolts here in the United States. The Kuhn tedder that I have, right? The Kuhn, Kuhn, that has the same nonsense on it. That is a French-made Kuhn tedder. It has different size metric bolts. If you're not twisting them off, trying to tighten them up, they loosen up and fall out. I have never, in the last, I barely use the thing anymore. It's functional, it works just fine. The problem is that bolts loosen up, and then now I've got to replace some things that need to be replaced because of the hogged out holes where these bolts loosen up. And don't tell me I hadn't tightened them up to the proper torque spec. I had so many problems with these damn things. You tighten them up to, Newton meters, so ever many Newton meters over the inch pounds or foot pounds that we use here. It's fine. Newton meters is just a measurement. It's already on my torque wrenches. And I'm fine with using Newton meters. The problem is if you torque them to the Newton meter that they say they're supposed to be torqued to, they loosen up. So you gotta use Loctite, and a lot of Loctite, not just a little bit. You Loctite the motherfucker down, and you use the Newton meters that they say, because if you go over it, you snap them off. So with the standard U.S. standard bolts, you tighten them up, they stay tight. We just don't have the issues with these stupid bolts loosening up or snapping off. I am really good at torquing stuff by feel, right? By feel. Not so much on the metric stuff because it's different. And you'd use your torque wrench and torque it to the proper Newton meter, and it loosens up. Okay, fine. I know I was talking with Kurt and Kim when they were here, and Alex, the Dutch dairy farmer, when he was here, and they were talking about it, like, well, you're just not doing it right. There's no right or you can only do it the way that it states in the book. And where's my phone? This telephone right here, you take the size of the bolt, the pitch of the thread, and you look it up on there. There's charts, grade 8.8 or 10.9, and it'll give you the torque spec that you need or Newton meter torque spec. And I've snapped shit off. You want to talk about cussing and swearing? You saw me weld the top of that nut onto that bolt to take it out of there. Yeah, I've done that a few times. Oh, that shit pisses me off. Pisses me right the hell off. This, whether it's just a U.S. thing that they send us inferior bolts and fasteners on the farm equipment or whatever, or I'm just a gorilla with a torque wrench that doesn't understand tens, ones, and Newton meters, which I know I do. So anyways, I'll just shut up now, and you can hear me rant, not rant, but just talk about what is happening in the ag market and pricing that goes on with the with the farm equipment versus the prices that we're getting paid. I think I touched on quite a few. If not, I will come back in at the end, and I'll discuss whatever is on my mind if you're sticking around that far. But anyways, here's more shop talk.
Holy shit, $383. Was it 383 or 389? It was 389. Anyway, whatever. It was stupid expensive, and I'm going to go cut hay now, and we'll bale it, but it's going to take 2 tons of hay just to pay for 2 shock hubs. I have a spare, 30 knives, and 6 bolts and nuts, and that's the whole ball of wax. So how long can farmers put up with this? I don't know. I'm getting at the end of my rope. Not that I'm going to go hang myself, but I'm getting to the end of the point where I still want to do this. When you're losing money every year for the last 3 years, and yes, we've lost money for 3 years. Equipment costs, you're barely paying your operating loans and your equipment loans. The equipment gets old, and the next tax on that equipment is when you have to pay for parts, and that is the tax to keep going. And that tax or that equipment upkeep is 40% higher than it was 3.5 years ago. So if you're in the agricultural business and you want to see farmers go out of business, go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. I know what the policies of Donald Trump are. He used them in the past, and they worked very well for us. As a matter of fact, those were golden years of agriculture as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't terrible under Obama. It wasn't bad under Obama in the mulch hay business. Under Bush, it was okay. Under Bush and Obama, it was okay. We had, it was fine. Under Donald Trump, we did good. I got the highest prices ever paid with the lowest input costs I ever had for modern farming. Fertilizers and fuel and equipment costs were all within profitable margins. Today, equipment cost is through the roof. We are not in a profitable margin. Yesterday morning on the Ag RFD TV, they came on and they said corn is going to be a deficit year. You're not going to make any money on corn. You're going to lose money on corn this year. And next year, you're going to lose money on corn too. And I'm thinking to myself, why the fuck are we losing money on corn? You know, why are farmers even planting it? To hell with it. Let it go. You know, don't plant beans. Just don't plant corn. To hell with it. Drop those acres. Get them down 1,000,000 acres. You take 1,000,000 acres of corn. And I've said this in the past. Nobody would listen because I'm just some jackass from New Jersey. But supply and demand, it's a simple concept. Too much supply, low demand. Not enough supply, high demand. High demand requires more money. We get more money. And then, of course, farmers plant 10 times more, and then, you know, that's what you end up with, low pricing. And I'm sure that's my wife because she's health and wellness. Health wellness? I got to answer that. So I guess health and wellness didn't really want to talk to me. But yeah, you know, supply and demand, that's where I was at. Too high of a supply of corn, soybeans, wheat, barley, rye, you know, lesbidine, whatever the hell you're growing. Too much of a supply of hay, or a low demand for the product that you take your hay to, you know, to be utilized as. Then if you get that low demand, then my demand goes down. Doesn't mean there's more guys actually producing mulch hay or hay for the mushroom barns. It just means that there's not a demand for the mushrooms because the economy is waning. Mushrooms are a luxury. That's all there is to it. They are a luxury item. You go through the grocery store, you don't have to have mushrooms. They are not going to, I mean, the health benefits of mushrooms is great, but if you're paying $23 for a steak and $10 for a whole chicken, I mean, you can go to Costco and get an already cooked chicken for $5, but just say $8 for a whole chicken, and that's about where it is for a 4 or 5 pound chicken. You're paying a lot of money for that, and you're going to look at the mushrooms and be like, geez, do I really need to spend $3.50 for a pound of mushrooms? A quart or a pound, I don't know how they package them, I forget, I think it's a pound. $3.50 for a pound of mushrooms, we'll let the mushrooms go, they'll just have to suffer without them. I like mushrooms. I think that they enhance the meal quite a bit. Don't overdo them, but they do make a nice flavor. Take up the flavor and the texture, and it's just very, very nice additive to the meal that you're preparing. But mushroom sales are down because the economy's down. People can look and say, oh, but the stock market. Well, you know what? That stock market is just the wealthy people dealing with that. You know, people that are investing in stocks and bonds. It doesn't mean that anything is great and wonderful elsewhere. It just doesn't. It just means that people are investing their money in the stock market. And when inflation catches up and people can't afford to buy new cars, then General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, or Fiat now stop making as many cars because people aren't buying them, and that economy starts, then they start laying people off, and they're laying people off right now. John Deere laid off how many, 1,100 people? AGCO, same. Kinsey, 600 employees. Kinsey Manufacturing laid off over 600 employees here in the last month. Manufacturing starts to drop off here in this country. Is it picking up elsewhere? I don't think so. I just think that that's the sign that the economy is not as good as the people in charge tell us it is. And I know it because I'm a farmer and I've been dealing with this now for three and a half freaking years. Low income. Yes, we had high prices on corn. Yes, we had high prices on soybeans, but we also had record high prices on equipment, fertilizer, herbicides, electricity, propane, whatever the hell it is that we had to pay for. It is off the charts high. And now, what is corn? $3.85 on the open market? I'm in a fortunate area where there's a deficit in corn because we don't grow a lot here. You know, they have to bring it in, or they pay more money, and I'm able to get that way. I can get a higher price. Soybeans as well. The price keeps going up for us. I'm 40 cents over basis here, but you guys can't, out in the Midwest, can't haul it to me for 40 cents. Just isn't going to happen. So it is what it is. And instead of it going to the local feed mills that are over in Pennsylvania, local, I mean 100 miles away, those feed mills are going to have to bring it in on rail where they could get it cheaper, and the farmers out in the Midwest are going to have to pay that freight. So they go under basis because it's needed elsewhere, and it's going to cost that much to get it to here, and the buyers aren't gonna. They're just gonna pass on the expense to the farmer. They're not gonna eat the expense because they would go out of business. So farmers go out of business. There's 10 of us all just jumping at 100-acre lots. That's how it works. Anyways, have a nice day. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, well, oh well. Have a nice day anyway. And if you did enjoy it, say, I love America in the comments. I love America in the comments.